education, decolonization of the mind, honoring African women, hearing the voices of our youth, and cultural vibrations. We are honored to have sister speakers from various organizations, including the Sudanese Women Union, the National Union of AAWRU Women, the National Union of Eritrean Women, and the All African Women Revolutionary Union. There will also be solidarity messages from Sankofa Rising, from Community Day in Kinshasa, from Congo, Cuba in the UK, as well as UDEMU in the UK. Today, we will also hear from young Pan-Africanist sisters on our youth panel who will express their views on African women in the struggle for Pan-Africanism. At 4 p.m., we will also link with our comrades worldwide who are hosting an International Pan-African Women's Day webinar. You will have the opportunity to engage with many other women speakers. Lastly, food will be served at around 6 p.m. and throughout the day, there will be cultural performances and we'll close with a live band. Once again, we welcome you to Pan-African Women's Day 2026. Solidarity. So I'd now like to introduce our first solidarity message from the first secretary at the UK Cuban Embassy.
Good afternoon, dear sisters, brothers, and comrades. On behalf of the Embassy of Cuba and the Cuban people, it's a great honor to be here with all of you. We thank the All African Women's Revolutionary Union and the AAWRU for organizing this important event on Pan-African Women's Day. Today, we honor two heroic women, Assata Shakur and Titina Sylla. Their courage, strength, and commitment to freedom inspire us all. Cuba has proud to offer refuge to our sister, Assata Shakur. We also honor Titina Sylla, who gave her life for liberation in Guinea-Bissau. Their memory lives on in our struggle and in our hearts. Cuba's solidarity with Africa is deep and unbreakable. It is rooted in our shared history, our culture, our tradition, and our struggle against colonialism and injustice. As we used to say in Cuba, Africa is our mother. Cuba has always supported and will always support internationalism, national sovereignty, and the right of all people to self-determination. Today, our nation faces, as you know, very difficult times due to the cruel US blockade. We deeply appreciate your strong support against the US government and solidarity with the Cuban people. Together, we will continue to fight for peace, justice, and dignity for all our people. Long life Pan-African unity. Long life the friendship between Cuba and Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll now move on to our first speaker of the event. So it's going to Women Union based in London, and we will have Sister Rasha Kalafala presenting a speech. So Sister Rasha is an experienced team mentor within the domestic abuse service at the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, where she worked since January 2020. She has extensive experience in leadership, safeguarding, mentoring, and survivors of domestic abuse, with a strong commitment to promoting safety, empowerment, and positive outcomes for vulnerable individuals and families. Russia holds a master's degree in environmental health from the University of Birmingham and an HND in business management and a bachelor's from the University of Khartoum. Her multidisciplinary academic background complements her professional experience in public service and community development. Russia is also a dedicated Sudanese community activist in London. She is an active member of the Sudanese Women Union in London and serves on the committee of the University of Khartoum Alumni Association in the UK and Ireland. Through her professional and community work, she is passionate about women's empowerment, equality, social justice, education, and supporting the well-being of the Sudanese diaspora in the UK. Let's give a round of applause, Sister Russia.
Good evening, everyone. Sisters, comrades, friends, and allies. On behalf of the Sudanese Women's Unions in the UK and Ireland, it's an honor to stand with you today on Pan-African Women's Day. We are proud to stand alongside African women across the continent and the diaspora, united in our struggle for freedom, united in our struggle for justice, united in our struggle for equality, peace, and women's rights. We thank the organizers for bringing us together under the powerful themes: African women's leading the revolution, salute, respect and honor to Assata Shakur, respect and honor to Titina Sila, leaders within our liberations movement. African women have never stood at the margins of history. We have been at the heart of resistance and at the forefront of liberation struggles. Today, we honor Assata Shakur, Titina Sila, and we honor also all African women who have fought and continue to fight against colonialism, oppression and exploitation, and fight for freedom, fight for justice and dignity. Let's talk about our history back home, about our history of the Sudanese Women Union. I have a PowerPoint, yes. The Sudanese Women's Union was founded in 1952 before Sudanese independence. Sudanese independence was 1956, and Sudanese Women's Union established before 1952. From the beginning, we understood that women liberation is inseparable from national liberation. We fought for education, we fought for health care, we fought for equality, we fought for political rights and independence. We proudly remember our comrade Fatima Ahmed Ibrahim, the first Sudanese woman elected to parliament in 1965. Following the October revolutions of 1964, Sudanese women won the right to vote and stand for election. These rights were not gifts, they were won through struggles. Comrades Fatima Ahmed Ibrahim and her comrades fought for equal pay. They fought for women's right to work. They fought for paid maternity leave, and they fought for legal reform and women's full participations in political life. In 1991, Fatima Ahmed Ibrahim was elected president of the Women's International Democratic Federation, becoming a symbol of Sudanese international women's struggles. Her legacy is not simple history, it's struggles we continue today. So we continue the struggles today, as Sudan, since April 2023, has been devastated by war. Millions have displaced, families have been torn apart, communities have been destroyed, women and girls face rape, sexual violence, displacement, killing, and other grave violations. But let us be clear, Sudanese women, like Sudanese Women's Union, are not simple victims. We are organizers, we are leaders. The Sudanese women, we are agents of change. Women are supporting displaced communities, providing food and medicines, providing documenting violations, resisting violence, and working for peace. So we are not waiting for peace to come to us. We are fighting to build it. Women must be at the heart of the peace. Our messages as a Sudanese is very clear. No peace without women, no democracy without women, no future for Sudan without a woman. Women have carried, women carried much of the burden of the war, yet they continue to be excluded from many peace negotiation and decision-making spaces. This must change. We need the women to be the decisions makers. Yes. We don't want token participation. We demand meaningful participations, real leadership, and real power in shaping Sudan's future. We thank you all sisters and allies here in Britain who stand with the Sudanese people. But solidarity must be more than words. Solidarity is action. Solidarity is commitment. Solidarity is sustained. Please keep Sudan's visible. Listen to Sudanese women. Support women-led initiatives. Amplify our voices. We are not asking you to speak for us. We are asking you to stand with us. The Sudanese people deserve peace, they deserve freedom, they deserve democracy and the right to determine their own future, free from war, foreign interference, and military rules. We don't want that. Sudanese people deserve the peace, freedom and democracy, and the right to determine their own future, free from war and foreign interference and the military rule. Today, we are honored, respect Asad Shakur, respect and honor Titina Sila, and respect and honor Fatima Ahmed Ibrahim, and we respect her comrades, and we respect here all African women who transform pain into resistance, fear into courage, and struggles into history. And we Sudanese women says, we will not retreat, we will not be silent, and we will not accept the future for Sudan written without us. We will continue to organize, resist, and struggles for free, democratic, and just and equal Sudan. Let us unite our struggles. Let us unite the strengths and women's solidarity across Sudan, across Africa, and Britain, and the diaspora. Long life African women solidarities. Long life African women solidarities. Long life the struggles for freedoms. Long life the struggle for justice. And long life the struggle for equality. Peace and justice for Sudan. Freedom and peace and justice for Sudan. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Rasha. Representing the National Union of Sahrawi, we have Sister Comrade Najla Mohammed Lamin, who is a Sahrawi African Arab refugee woman. She was born and raised in the Samara refugee camps. She is the founder of Al Masa Library Center and is also a human rights, climate rights, and women's rights activist. Comrade Najla holds multiple certificates in advocacy and languages, as well as holding a degree in art and science with a focus on sustainable development. She believes in informal education, mostly through reading and life experiences. Our comrade has represented the Sahrawi women and youth internationally for several years. Sister Najla is based in the Sahrawi refugee camps, where she runs a center that serves women and children. And she was also named by the BBC as one of the 100 most influential women in 2023. Please welcome Sister Comrade Najla.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Perfect. Good afternoon, everyone. I salute you, and I salute every female soul across the African continent, from the coast of South Africa to the hills of Algeria, from the shores of West Sahara to the mountains of Ethiopia, from the vast desert of Libya and Mali, Sudan, all the way to Mauritania. With this salute, I hope to awaken a sense of belonging, a remembrance of the oneness of our ancestors and the unity that connects our present souls in this special day. I'm a Sahrawi woman born and raised in the Sahrawi refugee camps. My mother came to these refugee camps when she was 6 years old. I was raised in a society where almost everything was spoken in plural. I was raised by mothers rather than by a single mother. Those mothers instilled in me a belief that would later become one of the most powerful tools I would carry into my struggle. Our survival depends on each other. Our strength is not an individual virtue, but a collective effort. Nobody is weak alone, and everybody is strong together. When I was younger, I often thought that my paternal grandmother, Salka, was somehow illiterate. The things she advised me about did not always correspond with what I was learning at school, with mainstream knowledge. My grandmother, Salka, had a skeptical mind. She questioned things. She distrusted what was presented as unquestionable, especially anything related to politics. She blamed everything that bothered her on colonialism and infiltration. Anytime Salka couldn't agree with you or whatever you were saying did not make sense to her, she would accuse you of bringing her colonial narratives. My grandmother, Fanna, on the other hand, was a woman of prayer. She was quiet and gentle, and she carried an extraordinary love for her homeland. She knew the land where she lived like the palm of her hand. Before 1975, she had lived as a nomad, and she spoke of a kind of freedom that was deeply authentic, a freedom that did not need to be explained because it was lived. I grew up with her in the refugee camps after she was forced to leave her homeland when the Moroccan military invaded our land. My grandmother made sure I was told the story, our story from her to me. I learned about my homeland through the stories she taught us and the poetry she sang. She prayed constantly in our green tent in the refugee camp, Smara, saying, "Oh God, take me back to my homeland so I can breathe the air of freedom." Me as a young girl, I could feel the power connection she had with her land. What she was experiencing on daily basis was enough to show me that this is a relationship that is deep and rooted in her soul. For her, freedom was not an abstract political concept. It was something she could breathe. My grandmother Fanna, like many others, did not believe in individual ownership of land. She believed, like all the Sahrawis, that they belonged to all the land, and at the same time, that no individual could claim to own it. It was almost an identity in itself, worthy of love, respect, and recognition. There is something profoundly different in this way of understanding land. It challenges the capitalist idea that land must be reduced to property measured by its economical value, divided into private possessions, and transferred from one owner to the other. My grandmother, land was not a commodity. It was home, it was memory, it was freedom, it was part of who you were, the pillar of your dignity. Sahrawi women have always been central figures in the family and in the society, despite all the internal struggles that women face, as they do in most societies. They managed to survive the war, organize their communities, and maintain the spirit of resistance, even when that meant walking for months to reach the desert of Algeria, where our current refugee camps are located. In 1975, after our land was occupied by Morocco and my people were forced to leave their homeland, Sahrawi women arrived in the vast empty desert with nothing but the clothes they were wearing, their children, and a spirit strong enough to carry the trauma of the war and exile. From almost nothing, they began constructing what we call today the Sahrawi state in exile, with its governments, institutions, NGOs, and various branches and structures. Much of this was built by the hands of women who, at the same time, were largely illiterate. Of course, we need education, knowledge, and expertise to build societies. But what is fundamental is courage, resilience, collective responsibility, solidarity, generosity, and determination. Sahrawi women embodied all of these qualities, or perhaps more accurately, those virtues were scattered among thousands of women who contributed to creating such a unique society. What one woman did not have, another did. Together, they had everything they needed. In 2019, I participated in the Cabral School in Ghana alongside many other young African leaders. Nothing I encountered there felt foreign to me. My liberation movement, the Polisario Front, had been part of the broader history of African liberation struggles, alongside many of the continent's other liberation movements. The Sahrawi Republic is also a founding member of the African Union. The Sahrawi women, the Sahrawi Women's Union, founded in the early 70s, followed these same traditions of leadership and resistance. Just as our liberation movement, the Polisario Front, has carried the political struggle for our people's freedom, Sahrawi have carried and continue to carry the social, communal, and human dimensions of that struggle. Their story, my story, reminds us that societies are not built only through institutions, resources, or formal education. They are also built through courage, solidarity, sacrifice, and determination of ordinary people to create future under extraordinary circumstances. In other words, society, institutions, governments, continents, and unions need women. And in the history of the Sahrawi people, women have been at the heart of that creation. The Sahrawi Women's Union is built on an ideology that opposes imperialism, capitalism, and new colonialism, particularly in the context of Morocco occupation of Western Sahara. It views women's liberation and is grounded in the values of freedom, solidarity, equality, and justice. Founded as well as a mass organization representing the Sahrawi women, the union has played a central role in connecting women's rights and social issues to the broader struggle for national liberation movement following the Moroccan occupation of Western Sahara in 1975. The Sahrawi women became central actors in the constructions of and organization of life in the refugee camps. Sahrawi women in the refugee camps have helped establish schools, hospitals, they helped establish schools, hospitals, administrative infrastructures, essential institutions while working to reduce dependence on international aid. The Sahrawi refugee camps are a unique example of self-managed refugee communities. Teachers, nurses, administrations are all built by women. Yet, Sahrawi women have never operated under ideal circumstances. Quite the opposite. What makes their achievement extraordinary is that they have built and sustained all of this while living for more than 5 decades in refugee camps and depending heavily on international humanitarian aid. At the same time, they continue to carry the struggle for liberation and the right to self determination in the face of Moroccan monarchy and its powerful international allies. The Sahrawi woman continues to endure the immense hardship of life in the refugee camps after more than 50 years of exile. But perhaps the deepest suffering of the Sahrawi women is not material. It is the engineered silence around our struggle. We have watched the international community repeatedly fail to deliver a just solution to the Western Sahara conflict. We have witnessed the United Nations system, and particularly the Security Council, that has often appeared unable or unwilling to translate the principles of international law into meaningful actions in the question of Western Sahara. While political interest, economic relations, strategic calculations, and claims of regional stability continues to shape international responses, not only to our struggle, but to all the struggles around the world. At the same time, Sahrawi women in the occupied territories of Western Sahara continue to face serious human rights violations and oppression under the Moroccan control. And perhaps the most painful part of all of this, watching generations of dreams and souls being buried in the desert of the refugee camps before those dreams ever have the chance to become a reality. I think of my grandmother Fanna and of so many others like her. They carried the hope of returning home. They built institutions, raised children, educated generations, organized communities, and preserved the people's identity while waiting for justice. Yet many of them never lived to see the day they had spent their entire lives hoping for. The graveyard in those refugee camps of souls is vast, and the graveyard of dreams has no shape. Sahrawi women are African women, and to our disgrace, we carry the destiny of colonialism that has lasted for too long. But we also carry a profound grace, the grace that has sustained and constituted our resistance. We might not have managed to defeat the capitalist colonial global system once and for all, but we have certainly survived it. Perhaps what we need as African women who aspire to liberation and Pan Africanism is to return to the particularities of our cultures and traditions, to the ways our ancestors understood land, understood victory, and understood our relationship to one another. Perhaps within those ways of knowing, we can find the power we need for the battles that are still ahead. Our true liberation will come from collective countries, nations, and societies. It will come from understanding deeply that my liberation as a Sahrawi woman is tied to the liberation of every African woman and extends beyond that to every oppressed woman around the world. We African women have a profound responsibility to challenge the colonizers who continue to see us as tools in their hands. But we must also confront the forms of colonialism that operate within the infiltrators and the structures that reduces colonial power on our soil, as we have witnessed in the case of Morocco, and in the actions of governments and leaders who continue to serve the interests of their former and present colonial masters. We can only confront this by looking back to our grandmothers, to our histories, and to the knowledge that has carried us this far. We must unite, we must build bridges of friendship and solidarity. We must recognize that Africa needs all of us, not only as nations, but as land, as people, and as interconnected histories. And perhaps this is where the stories of our mothers become more than stories. They become knowledge, they become ways of understanding a world that exists beyond the framework imposed upon us by colonialism, capitalism, and the dominant system of knowledge. What I shared about my grandmother at the beginning of this presentation is not simply a story about two women who raised me. It's a story about the intellectual and spiritual inheritance they left behind. Salka taught me to question, Fanna taught me to remember. One taught me to be skeptical of what I was told, the other taught me to listen to what the land was telling me. Together, they gave me the pillars upon which my own understanding of struggle continues to stand. And perhaps this is what our struggles are also about, reclaiming the knowledge that our mothers and grandmothers carried along before anyone thought to call it knowledge, power, or liberation. Because decolonization is not only about reclaiming land, it's also about reclaiming our authority to know, to remember, to interpret the world, and to imagine a future on our own terms. Our grandmothers knew this long before we had the language to name it. And perhaps our task is not to invent liberation from nothing, but to remember what was never truly lost. Thank you.
Our next speech will be from Sister Comrade Maxine Davis, who is representing the All African Revolution. Sister Comrade Maxine joined the AAPRP in London in 1986, following a nationwide tour of England's Black communities by Great Son of Africa and Sister Kwame Ture in 1983. Sister Maxine is one of the pioneers responsible for the founding of the Britain chapter of AAPRP in 1984. Sister Maxine was selected by the Central Committee of the AAPRP to be a part of a delegation led by Great Son of Africa and ancestor Kwame Ture for the Worldwide African Anti-Zionist Front Founding Convention from June 12 to June 15 in 1991 in Tripoli, Libya. There were global representatives from progressive and revolutionary organizations present, such as the Azanian People's Organization, Nation of Islam, Black Consciousness Movement of Azania, the Pan-African Union of Sierra Leone, the New African People's Organization, and many others. Sister Maxine is an African born in England of African Jamaican parentage. She has 2 adult children. Sister Maxine has also been a proponent of Pan-Africanism since reading Class Struggle in Africa by Kwame Nkrumah as a university student. She has been organizing for the AAPRP for over 40 years and remains a committed Pan-Africanist who is passionate about the need to reclaim the esteemed position of equality and respect held for African women within traditional African cultures. Sister Maxine strives to be a living example of African women at the center of the African Revolution. Please welcome Sister Maxine.
Thank you, Sister Tandy, and good afternoon, everyone. Revolutionary greetings, sisters, brothers, and comrades. So let us have a little bit of engagement. When I say, who are we? Who are we? We are Africans. When I say, what do we want? Peace and justice. Freedom. Before we can get that peace and justice, we have to have freedom. So we have to speak in one unified voice. Everything that has been said is correct, but we have to speak in one unified voice. Who are we? Africans. Who are we? Africans. Who are we? Africans. What do we want? Freedom. What do we want? Freedom. And we will gain that through unity and solidarity. So firstly, let us give thanks to the ancestors for their struggles and dedication to building a better world. We give thanks to those who built our early civilizations, those who lost their lives in the Middle Passage, and those who fought to protect our lands, and those of us who have survived living in foreign land in bondage. It is my pleasure today to speak on this great panel of revolutionary sisters. Let me say firstly that when Europe came into contact with Africa, Africa was more advanced than Europe. When Europe came into contact with Africa, Africa was more advanced than Europe. This history is so important to teach our next generations. So let's be clear, Africa was not a dark continent. Africa had brought forth science, religion, writing, agriculture, farming, animal husbandry, pottery, cloth dyeing, arts, music, and more, centuries before Europe. It is likely that we as women made up over more than 50% of those early populations. So why are we here today? On behalf of the All African Women's Revolutionary Union and the All African People's Revolutionary Party, I'd like to thank the organizers of today's event for shining a spotlight on our heroic sisters. And that's why we're here today, to shine that light on African women and to continue to shine that light. On this day, we commemorate Pan-African Women's Day. Specifically, we look at our African women who have been overlooked unless they play a nurturing or passive role. The imperialist, racist, sexist media portrays the African woman as weak, yet overbearing, asexual, yet over-sexualized, motherly, yet destined to single motherhood, overweight, yet forever hungry, oppressed and downtrodden by the African man and outdated African traditions. But sisters and brothers, we know that this is not true. So Pan-African Women's Day calls upon each and every one of us not to accept these crude stereotypes and historical lies about African women. It is time that African women are recognized foremost for our essential humanity. African women are recognized first and foremost for our essential humanity. All humans arise from the same material and spiritual base. Am I wrong, sisters and brothers? Did some of us get here in a way that we are not aware of? Please tell me. We arise from the same material and spiritual base, and this confers on each of us an intrinsic value and equality. Our value is not about our name. Our value is not about our beauty. Our value is not about our tribe. Our value is about what essentially makes us human. And what makes us human does not differ because of our gender. In no society should social or economic roles remove the essential human dignity of the woman, or for that matter, of the man. We know that in many of our traditional African societies, these principles were reflected. The principle of the inherent dignity of all human beings. Slavery, colonization, and capitalism has robbed the African woman of her essential dignity. Sorry, my things jumped. So let us look at the role of African women throughout history. African history, including the history of the African diaspora, is full of examples of African female nation builders, spiritual leaders, warriors, and activists. But this is not taught in our schools, and unfortunately, it is not taught on our homeland as well. So we can meet many of our people who are unaware of our history as a people. Pan-African Women's Day is about correcting that ignorance and presenting the truth about the history of our people and the truth of African women. Assata Shakur and Tatina Silla are two such women. But let us not forget the great queens of Egypt, the great queens of Kush. Let us not forget the spirit medium, Mboya Nyanda, Queen Nzinga, Nanny of the Maroons in Jamaica, who fought for the freedom of our people. What of our warrior sister, Sojourner Truth, born into slavery in the 1800s, but she became an advocate of women's rights. You may have heard of her famous speech, "Ain't I a woman?" There were days when we as African women had to challenge the society that we lived in just to recognize us as women. 1879, Uda Sharawi was a pioneering Egyptian feminist leader, suffragette, nationalist, and founder of the Egyptian Feminist Union. In 1927, a group of 21 women of African descent were the main organizers of the Fourth Pan-African Congress held in New York. And then in 1929, the Igbo women back on the continent, thousands of them marched and protested against colonization. This uprising was known as the Aba Women's War. The Aba Women's War stands as a landmark in Nigeria's colonial history. It was neither a spontaneous outbreak nor a minor skirmish, but a coordinated uprising led by thousands of Igbo women, led by thousands of women, not often written into our history books. African women were instrumental in the development of the Universal Negro Improvement Association in the early 1900s. Amy Ashwood Garvey should rightly be recognized as the co-founder of the United Negro Improvement Association, but often we only hear the name of Marcus Mosiah Garvey. She was also responsible for the newspaper, The Negro World, which spread the views of the Universal Negro Improvement Association worldwide, an important weapon written and run by an African woman. Amy Jacks Garvey can rightly be recognized as a co-creator of Garveyism, because when Honorable Marcus Mosiah was imprisoned, it is Amy Jacks Garvey that continued to speak about his work and wrote, somebody remind me of the name of the book of Garvey, sorry? Philosophy and Opinions of Marcus Mosiah Garvey. We return to the continent. Funimileo Ransom Kuti began her activism in the 1940s. She formed the Abeokuta Women's Union. The union expanded rapidly and eventually attracted tens of thousands of members, most of whom were market women and traders. The organization became one of the most powerful grassroots movements in colonial Nigeria. Let us go to the Caribbean. Claudia Jones, born 1915 in Trinidad, was a social and political activist and journalist. In 1936, she joined the Communist Party in the USA, and in England, she set up the West Indian Gazette, a mouthpiece for London's then 100,000 strong community of African descent. She is remembered fondly as the founding spirit of Notting Hill Carnival. We return to Africa. Jamila Bupacha, born 1938 in Algeria, is one of the most iconic figures of Algeria's independence movement. A member of the National Liberation Front, Bupacha became a symbol of resistance. Then in 1945, at the historic 5th Pan-African Congress, which took place in Manchester, England, it was, again, the Garvey women, Amy Jacks Garvey and Amy Ashwood Garvey, that connected the people from the Universal Negro Improvement Association, with the intellectuals who were organizing within the Council for African Affairs, the West African Students Association, and the International African Service Bureau. This was all here happening all here in England. Let us not forget Shirley Graham Du Bois, who was another force who went on to serve the movement with great distinction. So African women, we have been organizing for a long, long, long time. We are back to the continent, to the Mau Mau of Kenya. Field Marshal Matori Kirima, she took the Mau Mau oath in 1952 and became one of the first field marshals. In 1956, 20,000 African women took to the streets to march against the past laws in Azania, South Africa. Did you know that during the anti-colonial struggle, African women took up arms? I say took up arms in Algeria, Eritrea, Guinea-Bissau, Guinea-Conakry, Mozambique, South Africa, Kenya, and Angola. We are not only speaking of the past, sisters and brothers, we are speaking of our inheritance. Let us not forget our first warrior nationalist, Mama Nomzamo Winifred Madikizela, known as Winnie Mandela, who dedicated over 60 years of her life to the struggle for the independence of Azania. In 1993, she became president of the ANC Women's League. Sadly, we now know that the so-called independence of South Africa was in fact a sham and a betrayal of the masses. Sisters and brothers, we have more work to do. In 1956, 20,000 Azanian women marched. Their cry or call was, "You strike a woman, you strike a rock." Repeat after me. You strike a woman, you strike a woman, you strike a rock. A little about the All African Women's Revolutionary Union, which I'm representing today. And as I thought about this section, it came to me that the All African Women's Revolutionary Union stands on the slender shoulders of giants. We stand on the shoulders of the women that went before us. The All African People's Revolutionary Party understands that the liberation of African people cannot come to reality without the effective and genuine liberation of African women and marginalized genders. We cannot have liberation just for 50% of our people. There cannot be liberation for men only. The liberation of Africa must include, and it must be integral to our liberation, the liberation of African women and marginalized genders. And it is this recognition that brought around the founding of the All African Women's Revolutionary Union in November 1980. Our union aims to unite and develop the revolutionary political leadership of African women and marginalized genders across the continent and in the diaspora, in the struggle against imperialism, colonialism, and patriarchy. Sisters and brothers, it is so important that we know who or what the enemy is. Yes, we have many issues, but not all of our issues are of the same level and the same quality. We must know who the enemy is. And our women's union understands the enemy to be imperialism, colonialism, patriarchy, and capitalism. The Women's Union sought to give voice to the experiences and struggles of African women who face multiple forms of oppression and exploitation as a result of our gender, race, and class. Sisters, we are oppressed as a result of our gender, our womanness, our race, in that we are African people, and our class, in that when you look across the world and in any society, African people are at the bottom of the economic structure, even in our own nations. The Women's Union is guided by the principles of Nkrumahism, Touréism, and Cabralism, which recognizes common history and struggles of African people across the continent and the diaspora. So what is our objective? An objective is usually something that is concrete, that can be measured, and that can be attained. Our objective, or the objective of the All African Women's Revolutionary Union and the All African People's Revolutionary Party, is revolutionary Pan-Africanism. And this is a real and concrete objective, the history of which we can trace. If we go back to 1900, we will see the first Pan-African conference taking place, our people looking to bring us together to talk about and to decide on how we would liberate ourselves. 4 congresses followed the 1900 conference, and then in 1945, the pivotal 5th Pan-African Congress was held in Manchester, England. That Congress was attended by African women, but many of their names were not written in the records. Again, we were missed out of history. In 1957, we see the independence of Ghana under the leadership of Honorable Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah. In 1958, this was quickly followed by the independence of Guinea-Conakry, led by the Honorable Sékou Touré. And again in 1958, Ghana, Guinea, and Mali formed a union. Our struggle to unite is an ongoing political real struggle. In 1960, the PAIGC and MPLA, they came together to form the Revolutionary Front for the National Independence of the Portuguese colonies. And in 1961, we see the independence of Guinea-Bissau under the leadership of the great ancestor, Amilcar Cabral. Again, in 1961, we moved quickly to try and unite our revolutionary forces. And we see the PAIGC, the MPLA, and Frelimo, and also the MLSTP, come together to form the Conference of Nationalist Organizations of Portuguese Colonies. Unfortunately, the enemy was forever watching us and looking at how they could destabilize our movement forward. And in 1966, we see the coup in Ghana and the overthrow of the great Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah. Following this, in 1968, Kwame Nkrumah wrote the Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare, and he called for the formation of the All African People's Revolutionary Party, which I am a member of. And Kwame Nkrumah stated clearly that our objective now is the total liberation and unification of Africa under an all-African socialist government. So what is our vision? What is it that we want? What change do we want to see? Today, sisters and brothers, we stand at the crossroads of history of our people. The women who came before us, Assata Shakur, Tatina Silla, and the founders of the Pan-African Women's Organization. The countless unnamed sisters who resisted enslavement, colonization, patriarchy, apartheid, Zionism, imperialism, and all forms of oppression. They have done their part. They have passed on the torch to us. Now it is our turn. Our highest tribute to them is to continue their struggle. We cannot look to a distant leader, a charismatic prophet, or a benevolent outside power to save us. Yes, believe in God, but God will not come and save us. God has given us certain characteristics, certain qualities as human beings to work through and to build society for the benefit of our people. The liberation of Africans and women must continue to be an integral part of that process. A free, unified and socialist Africa. A free, unified and socialist Africa means a continent free from colonial borders that divide us artificially. Continent that reaches beyond the continent to the diaspora in recognition of the common identity which we share. A continent where our resources, oil, diamonds, gold, cobalt, uranium, water, our land belong to the people, not to multinationals, imperialist corporations, and their local compradors. A continent where every child has access to free, quality education and healthcare. And a continent where women are truly emancipated. In closing, sisters, I ask you, what are the values and principles that guide your day-to-day life? Do they include you making a personal contribution to the liberation of Africa? The All-African People's Revolutionary Party, the All-African Women's Revolutionary Union, seeks to organize African people across Africa and over 113 countries across the world. Ideology is also important. It is like the fuel in a car. Imagine a beautiful car, but it has very poor fuel inside of it. It will not perform well. Women are more than just physical bodies. We cannot be limited to the roles that reflect only our bodies. We cannot attain our full freedom without organization. We call upon you here today to join an organization fighting for the liberation and total unification of Africa. Sisters and brothers, I call upon you to organize, organize, organize. Should be a bit of music playing. Oh, you can't hear it. Can you get it on? Thank you. Yay.
Thank you, Sister Maxine. Moving on, we will have Sister Comrade Sinet Meratab, who will be representing the National Union of Eritrean Women. So Sinet has a bachelor's in mathematics and a master's in banking and finance, and is pursuing a career in finance. She has worked as a volunteer in youth-led initiatives such as the National Union of Eritrean Youth and Students in Eritrea, where she was responsible for budgeting 3 national youth development competitions. She has also contributed to other youth-led initiatives throughout her educational journey. She is an advocate for girls' education and women's empowerment, and is currently actively involved with the National Union of Eritrea in the UK. Established in 1979 during Eritrea's liberation, the National Union of Eritrean Women played a significant role in mobilizing and encouraging women's participation in the struggle for independence. Since independence in May 24, 1991, it has continued to promote women's equality, education, economic empowerment, and active participation in political and social life. Today's Senate will explore Eritrean women's contribution to the struggle for independence, as well as the evolution of the National Union of Eritrean Women, and the continuing achievements and role of Eritrean women in shape present and future. Please welcome Sister Sinet.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I want to thank you, my comrade, for that really lovely introduction. But it's an honor to be here representing the National Union of Eritrean Women today. and to speak as part of the celebration of African women and the future of our liberation and struggle. Before we talk about the achievements of Eritrean women, I think it's important to understand where we came from. Because to appreciate how far we've come, we must first understand where we began. Hence, in the next few minutes, I want to take you through that journey, the traditional expectations placed on Eritrean women, to their remarkable participation in the liberation struggle, the establishment and evolution of National Union of Eritrean Women, and the continuing work to advance women's education, health, economic empowerment, and participation in politics and society at large. Historically, Eritrean women, just like other women in the world in general, and African women in particular, lived in a society shaped by patriarchal traditions that placed women in subordinate position, and often limited their role to the household and family. Women were not always seen as capable of contributing meaningfully to public, political, or economic life. Apart from a few exceptions who overcame all the obstacles of a backward society dominated by patriarchal mentalities to stand in parliament and argue, or stand alongside men to defend against enemies and invaders. Most women were confined to the kitchen. They were viewed as mere complements to men, seen as secondary, and limited only to fulfilling their husband's desires. Following the departure of the Italian colonial regime from Eritrea in the early 1940s, the political struggle that began for independence of Eritreans saw a very limited role for women. Gradually, however, as the consciousness of the Eritrean society rose, and even though women had limited access to education, their contribution to the struggle and their supportive role of men in the battle became significant. With the start of the armed struggle for Eritrean independence in September 1st, 1991, and particularly with the birth of the EPLF, Eritrean People's Liberation Front, a guiding principle was launched for all segments of the society. Be conscious, organize, arm yourself. This created a conducive environment for Eritrean women to join the armed struggle and fight alongside their male comrades. Consequently, alongside the fight for independence, they set a dual goal: to dismantle backward and oppressive patriarchal mentalities and customs, and also to ensure their equal rights. To drive the struggle forward and to increase the influence and role of Eritrean women in the evolution and society, the National Union of Eritrean Women was founded in 1979 under the EPLF. After independence, this association continues to strive for the rights and equality of women, both through sacrifices and equal participation in work. Eritrean women have today secured their rights and equality, elevating their influence and role across all socio-economic and political sectors of Eritrea. This transformation did not happen overnight. It developed through a national liberation struggle that increasingly recognized that Eritrea could not be truly liberated if half of its population remained marginalized. The Eritrean People's Liberation Front made women's emancipation part of its broader vision for a liberated Eritrean society, and Eritrean women themselves became active participants in making that vision a reality. This was not simply about changing how women were viewed. It was about giving women the opportunity to demonstrate what they could contribute. And that is where the story of National Union of Eritrean Women begins. National Union of Eritrean Women was established during the armed struggle for Eritrea's independence, and its emergence reflected the understanding that women needed to be organized, empowered, and given an equal role in shaping the future of this society. Today, NUEW's mission is to guarantee women's equality in the political, economic, social, and cultural spheres, and to promote their active participation in nation building. But most importantly, I want to look at what that history means for the future of Eritrean and African women. One of the most significant aspects of Eritrea's liberation struggle was the unprecedented participation of women. Although only a small number of women initially joined the EPF in its early years, their participation grew rapidly, and women eventually made up approximately 35% of the Liberation Army. This was not simply symbolic participation. Eritrean women served in almost every area of the struggle, as combatants, commanders, but also as teachers, administrators, organizers, health workers, mechanics, electricians, electronic engineers, drivers, and technicians. The Ministry of Information describes this as a remarkable development because many of these roles were roles that had traditionally been regarded as the domain of men. What was even more significant is that women were not only participating, they were also taking on leadership responsibilities. According to the Eritrean Ministry of Information, 11% of women fighters were elected as members of the leadership. Women were therefore participating in decision-making as well as on the front lines. The struggle was guided by the principle of emancipation through equal participation in the struggle, reflecting the belief of women's emancipation could not be separated from the liberation of Eritrean society as a whole. Currently, those aspirations are also reflected in the quota system of the National Assembly, with 30% of seats reserved for women, whilst women are also able to compete for the remaining 70% against their men counterparts. Their participation also came at tremendous personal cost. Eritrean women sacrificed education, marriage, family life, and economic opportunities, and many suffered severe injuries, or sacrificed their lives in an effort to achieve Eritrea's independence. Yet their contribution went beyond the battlefield. Their presence challenged deeply rooted patriarchal attitudes and demonstrated through action that women could perform the same responsibilities, make decisions, and lead alongside. In this sense, Eritrean women's participation in the liberation struggle was not only contributing to the achievement of independence, it was also becoming a process of social transformation. It was within this context of women's growing participation that the National Union of Eritrean Women was formally established. In 1977, Eritrean women's associations from inside the country and abroad came together at a congress to establish a national women's organization. And in November 1979, the first Congress of the National Union of Eritrean Women was held in Panaf, under the powerful slogans, emancipation through equal participation in the struggle, and a revolution could not triumph without the conscious participation of women. National Union of Eritrean Women was therefore not created simply as an organization for women. It was created as part of the wider national liberation struggle, with the understanding that the liberation of Eritrea and the emancipation of Eritrean women were deeply connected. Its purpose was to organize and mobilize women, develop their political awareness and confidence, and ensure that women participated equally across all areas of the struggle. National Union of Eritrean Women's own account of its history describes this as a double struggle against colonialism and against backward social practices that restricted women, while promoting equality through women's participation in every sphere of the struggle. The Ministry of Information describes the liberation movement as pursuing not only military liberation, but also a wider transformation of Eritrean society, including mass education. Education was particularly important. Literacy and political education were used to reach communities across the country, and women were among the main beneficiaries and participants. One major adult literacy campaign reached 56,000 people, 60% of whom were women, demonstrating that educating women was seen as an essential part of building a new society. At the same time, women were organizing themselves in rural and urban areas through associations of workers, professionals, students, and scholars. This represented a significant change, particularly in rural communities, because women were increasingly moving from being viewed primarily through their roles within the household to becoming organized participants in political and social life. In this sense, the liberation struggle was changing not only who had political power, but also where Eritrean society believed women were capable of contributing. Another important area of National Union of Eritrean Women's work has been women's health and the challenge of harmful practices that have historically affected women and girls. National Union of Eritrean Women has worked closely with the Ministry of Health and other partners to raise awareness about women's health issues through seminars and meetings, which has been attended by more than 1.7 million people, 93% of whom were women. National Union of Eritrean Women has consistently worked to mobilize women and girls to pursue education, literacy, and skills development, and this has included working alongside other constitutions to improve girls' participation and achievement in school. In several parts of Eritrea, National Union of Eritrean Women and National Union of Eritrean Youth Alliance have set up initiatives for tutorial and educational support programs for girls in middle school and secondary schools. helping students to continue their grades and improve their academic performance. The wider progress in girls' education is significant, where we consider where Eritrea started from. According to the Eritrean Ministry of Information, the female youth literacy rates increased from 49.3% in 1990 to 92.7% in 2018, which is more than double, while the historically large gender gap in education has continued to narrow. According to National Union of Eritrean Women, its credit program has provided more than 47 million NAPA in loans to nearly 12,000 beneficiaries across 4 administrative regions. Women have used these loans for different activities, including starting small businesses, in an effort to allow them to generate income and strengthen their economic independence. Today, National Union of Eritrean Women operates through its headquarters in Asmara and offices across all 6 administrative regions, with a membership of more than 200,000 women, as well as chapters in the diaspora. Its mandate is organizing women and girls, raising awareness, advocating for women's rights, mobilizing women's participation, facilitating their participation in political, economic, and social life, and contributing to national development. This is why political organization remains important for African women at large. Progress does not sustain itself automatically. The rights and opportunities that women have gained have come through women organizing, educating one another, advocating for their interests, and participating collectively in society. National Union of Eritrean Women's history demonstrates that organized women can move from being recipients of change to becoming agents of change. Political organization gives women collective voice. It allows women to identify the challenges affecting their communities, advocate for solutions, and ensure that women's experiences were represented when decisions are made. And this organization cannot be limited to women alone. African women are part of families, communities, and nations. So organizing women also means organizing communities around education, health, economic development, and social progress. For the next generation, political organization should therefore mean not only participating in formal politics, but developing informed, confident, and active citizens who understand their rights, understand the needs of their communities, and are prepared to contribute to shaping their future. Thank you very much.
So we'd like to say thank you to all the sister speakers, to the Sudanese Women's Union, thank you very much. To the National Union of Sahrawi Women, thank you very much, Sister Nadia. To myself, from the All African Women's Revolutionary Union, thank you very much. And to Sister Sinet speaking about the women's struggle in Eritrea. Thank you to all the sister speakers. Now, we hope we'll have enough time before 4 o'clock to have a panel with the sister speakers on it. But before we go to that panel, we're going to hear a bit from our young people, and we're going to have a youth panel. So just give us a couple of minutes to get organized, and then welcome some of our young Pan-Africanists to give you their views. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, greetings everyone. Today, our young sisters here are going to be giving us a presentation on African women and the future of our liberation struggle. Numerous African women have contributed greatly towards achieving the ongoing fight to reach our Pan-African objectives. However, we still need to make actionable and intentional changes because African women across the globe are still experiencing sexism and racial discrimination. The presentation today will shed light on past achievements, and main aim is to also discuss what we can do today and in the future to further advocate for ourselves and all of our African women. Today we will be joined by Sister Princess, who will take us through the importance of women in health and medicine. Sister Seward online from occupied Western Sahara, who will talk about women's political participation and how we can resist imperialist, patriarchal, and capitalist violence. And Sister Sinet, who will have a segment on women in tech and education. And Sister Stanley, this was meant to be your part. What are we speaking about? We'll get through to it, of course. Thank you very much.
Hi, I just want to start by speaking about something that I think is really important, which is our health. And health, which is imperative to any community or movement, as being able to heal ourselves and care for ourselves is how we further our struggle. Healthcare is fundamental to is a fundamental proof of self-governance. So whilst before any imperialist or capitalist ideologies were imposed upon us, African people displayed this self-sufficiency through our existing medical knowledge and practices, where colonialism and neocolonialism is set on erasing and demonizing these practices to maintain colonial bias, and within our healthcare systems as a way to chase profit and take power over our own autonomy. The medical knowledge has been used against African populations, even in its most extreme forms of gynecological experimentation on African women or biological warfare. And so our grasp of healthcare has been an important part of our resistance. If we look to Kenya in the 1950s during the Mau Mau uprising, whilst the army were in the forest opposing British rule, women formed a core part of our resistance by gathering food, obtaining intelligence, and providing medical care and provisions. And one such woman was a trained nurse, Wamuriwa Kanyari, or matron as she served by training, by treating, maintaining control to ensure that it is policies and practices for the women that were seeking sanctuary. Today, colonial bias is still strong. It underrepresents and ignores African populations, as we see here in the UK, with clinical research maintaining samples of 80% European average, which ensures that treatment cannot possibly be tailored towards us. And we see African women facing deep discrimination within the healthcare system, we're 3.5 times more likely to die in childbirth than our European counterparts. And so I think that just as nation and other Mama women recognize health is another essential part of our liberation, and we mustn't forget them as revolutionaries alongside the fighters that they treated. Yeah, so I'm going to pass on to you. Oh.
Sister Sword, are you able to speak?
Yeah,
Yes, so I'll pass on
greetings.
to my comrade to
Greetings, comrades. Are you hearing me, Sister Princess?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So, greetings, Africans. I'm gonna speak about the current situation of African women in the continent. And to speak about this situation is to speak about a resistance that African women have to offer and continues to offer, is to speak of a struggle that shapes our reality. That reality is marked by intersection violence from capitalist imperialism, which tightens its grip on our lands, our resources, and our destinies. Every time we resist, it changes its tools. Today, it's spread through new colonialism, proxy wars, occupations, mining, and the plunder of our wealth. Every region of Africa is an open battlefield where this monstrous system sucks the blood of our people and corrupts our revolution through its agents and proxies. There is also the violence of new colonial regimes. They repress and imprison the people. They impoverish us. They withdraw the state from welfare, mortgages our countries to the World Bank and the IMF, and use laws, police, media, and education to spread division and ignorance. They close political spaces to prevent the masses from exercising their right to resist. Meanwhile, our society lives under systematic violence from fundamentalist, patriarchal, and reactionary groups, dragging the people into a swamp of oppression and corruption. African women are doubly sexual violence raised dramatically during the armed conflicts directly sponsored by imperialism. We have seen rape used as a weapon of war against our sisters in Sudan and Congo. This reminds us that understanding violence from a revolutionary perspective is to understand that enemy system target every social group based on its positions. The cost of war places enormous burdens of survival on most African women. They become responsible of material providing for families, especially in refugee camps, villages, and marginalized neighborhoods. They do this magnificently, but at tremendous physical and psychological cost. Capitalist policies. Women live really in informal sectors. Street vendors, domestic workers, factory and field workers all suffer from the absence of care policies and fair wages and no economic justice. All of this filters into communities and families. The rigid patriarchal model by colonialism and capitalism has turned our homes into meditate women. Societies that under long oppression now produce a darker version against their most oppressed member. Yet African women have never stood silent. They resist furiously from the start, challenging traditional system that reduced them to reproduction and serving. They fought to craft a new image of women. They are the reason today's African generations remain steadfast and strong. With the same furious, they stood as a poison dagger in the throat of colonialism. They lead national liberation revolutions, organize revolutionary cells, and become the guardians of revolution. The society with against death and imperialism to this day. This brings us to political participation. The question of women's participation cannot be separated from power itself under patriarchal, capitalist, and colonial order. Representation has become one of the most effective ties. Neoliberalism and colonial feminism tell us the placing women in parliaments and state is progress, but these women are often set dressing decoration that humanize the same machinery of debt, war, extraction, and disposition. Their presence does not change the class standing of the mass women. It legitimizes the system that keeps them poor and ignorance. Genuine participation was never about occupying a seat guaranteed by imperialism. It was about building power from below. The women of our national liberation struggles understand this. Titina Sila did not wait for a quota. She organized, mobilized, and gave her and Capo Verde. And by a ministerial title, she organized women and youth in Mozambique armed struggle and died a revolutionary. Bibi Titi Muhammad did not seek a token place. She built the women's wing of Tano and mobilized thousands of Tanzanian independence. This participation was structural, transformative, rooted in collective struggle, not symbolic inclusion in a system designed to exploit women and African women. African revolution teach us to see through this stations. Women's emancipation cannot be achieved by individual women rising, while participation means organized in neighborhoods, workplace, refugee camps, and popular assemblies. It means fighting for land, water, housing, labor rights, and against colonialism. A woman in the present I will skip this because my time is limited. So African women have, like in conclusion, African women have never need to be included in routing system. They have always been at part of building revolution and alternative future.
Yeah, sure. Do you know what you want to say?
The revolutionary models of our ancestors. They are. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so now we'll move on to working. Yeah, so now we're going to move on to the educational and technological participation.
When we talk about the future of women, especially African women, I believe we need to look at three key areas: education, technology, and financial independence. Girls' education, from access to opportunity. Girls need access to quality education, not just simple basic education. Education should equip girls with critical thinking, problem solving, communication, and leadership skills. We also need to encourage girls in subjects that will shape the future and where women, and especially African women, are massively underrepresented. I can speak firsthand from this, such as sciences, mathematics, technology, finance, and entrepreneurship. But education should not end at graduation. We need lifelong learning and skills development because the world is constantly changing. Young women also need pathways connecting education to employment, entrepreneurship, and leadership. So the goal should not simply be to get girls into education. It should be giving them skills and opportunities to use their education to shape their futures. Technology. Girls shouldn't just use the future, they should be encouraged to build it. The second area is technology. There is a difference between simply using technology and being able to adapt to technological advancements. In a world where companies are implementing AI and trying to be AI forward to optimize how they work, we need to ask ourselves, how are we preparing our youth to embrace and adapt to these changes? Digital empowerment means girls can use technology for education, access to information, learn new skills, work remotely, build a business, and use digital financial services. But it should go further. Girls should also be encouraged to code, help develop technology, understand AI, and emerging technologies, and participate in the digital economy. There's already a significant gender digital skills gap in sub-Saharan Africa. UNESCO reports that for every 100 men with spreadsheet skills, only around 40 to 44 women have the same proficiency. So we need to make sure girls are not simply consumers of technology. They should be encouraged to become creators and participants in the technology shaping our future. AAWRU is already creating opportunities for young people to engage with innovation and technology through national youth competitions. These initiatives provide young people with platforms to develop ideas, solve community problems, receive technical and entrepreneurial training, and turn their ideas to practical solutions. One example is the Innovation Club program, which I was really honored to be a part of as my volunteer program. It uses regional showcases leading to a national competition to give young students practical experience in programming, 3D design, robotics, and electronics. The program is designed not only to teach technical skills, but to help young people turn their ideas into prototypes and solutions to real community challenges. These are the kinds of opportunities that can help young people prepare for the future. Another sector is financial literacy, and empowerment has to include financial independence. Can we truly talk about women's empowerment without talking about women's financial independence? Financial empowerment has to be part of the conversation. Girls and young women need the knowledge and skills that help them become financially independent and participate in the economy, because education, technology, and financial independence are not separate issues. They connect. Education gives girls the skills and knowledge they need. Technology gives them new ways to learn, work, create, and participate. And financial independence gives women greater ability to shape their own futures. So when we talk about the future of African women, we need to make sure girls are not simply prepared to enter the future. We need to prepare them to participate in it, adapt to it, and build it. Thank you.
We extend our profound thanks to all African women, whether on the continent, in the diaspora, in the Caribbean, South America, or colonial territories, for presence and participation in this historic celebration of United Africa under women's leadership. We recognize Africa's past, its present, and its future, and it will attain freedom and dignity under Pan-Africanism and scientific socialism. We honor and immortalize these struggles. They serve as historical lessons that illuminate our difficult path, forming the theoretical and strategic bedrock for the continuation of the African Revolution. We acknowledge that we cannot match the immense sacrifices, struggles, and revolutionary foundations laid by our ancestors. Nevertheless, we make a solemn pledge. We remain faithful to the revolutionary covenant, and we never betray it. We vow to give everything precious and dear to rise to our responsibility and fulfill our duty towards the revolution. We proclaim glory and immortality to the martyrs of the African Revolution everywhere, to our sisters who have struggled, stood firm, and resisted, to those continuing resistance in homes, streets, and refugee camps, to workers, street vendors, migrants, women farmers, fighters, and revolutionaries, and to grandmothers and daughters who mapped African liberation through blood, sweat, theory, thought, culture, and practice.
Thank you.
Thank you to the sisters, and for those beautiful, solemn words. Your, commitment to take forward the struggle is really, really important. I've been involved in struggle for over 30, 40 years. I need to take a rest. Don't I need to take a rest? I need to take a rest, but I can't rest until I know that others are coming through. So we call upon you to join an organization that is fighting for our people. Now, yesterday we heard the news that a brother, Jason Arday, had taken his own life. So I'd like to express our condolences to his family. He's left behind a wife and 2 children. So it's hard out there. And I feel that this generation perhaps has been a bit tricked into believing that we can achieve some kind of elevation through these European institutions. Well, I hope we learn from what we have seen in the past few weeks, that they will pick us up, chew us, and spit us back out. So we need to create our own institutions. I'd like to invite Sister Rasha, Sister Sinit, just to come up here to take some questions or respond to some questions. We have about 10 minutes before we're going to go into the international webinar. Have I missed anyone? So the Sister Najla online, I don't know if she can still, she's still with us online. So earlier today, you heard from a number of women's organizations, the Sudanese Women's Union, the National Union of Eritrean Women, the All African Women's Revolutionary Union, and the National Union of Sahrawi Women. So I'd like to open up now for you to make any comments or ask any questions of us as women involved in organization. So I'd like to ask our speakers if you could just share with us from your own experience? Which women have inspired you from your own country, your own background, your own experience?
I think currently, if I'm to speak from experience, I would say the woman that I'm currently surrounded by, which is the National Union of Eritrean Women, some of whom were the founders of the National Union of Eritrean Women in diaspora, specifically in the UK. So I think it's one thing to hear something from history and researching, but also to experience that firsthand, and also have access to them, to the wealth of knowledge they have, but also their lived experience. I would say a lot of the, for example, representatives of the National Union of Eritrean Women, through their organization, the way they mobilize, the way they tackle, I would say, social justice and just equal rights. Yes, I would say the people that are here today as well, which are the representatives of National Union of Eritrean Women. They're all women that I'm truly inspired by. And I'm extremely honored that, yes, I get to present them today in this speech.
Our young sister is still inspired by the members of the National Union of Eritrean Women. So our struggles are not in vain, they are generational. Sister Rashan, who's inspired you?
Within all Sudanese women struggles, we are inspired by many Sudanese women. First, we have this from Kosh kingdoms, we have a leaders, says Manrenas. So she is one of the warriors. So, and it gives a legacy that's leadership for Sudanese people is inherited. So she was fighting the Romans people. And also we have, as I've told about when I spoke earlier, so one of our inspiration is Fatima Ahmed Ibrahim, comrades. Khalda Zahir and Fadla Talib, whom there's the Sudanese pioneers, they're established these Sudanese unions since 1952. And also I'm inspired with all Sudanese unions, comrades and the sisters whom they are joining from, those my sisters here as well. So the Sudanese unions whom are struggling and fighting for the rights for the women back home, and now they are struggling and fighting for our women back home. Now they are facing the war. So. Yeah, and also I'm also here inspired with all those Africans as well, today, Asada, Chikor, and Sila as well, and all African comrades. Thank you.
That's beautiful. So, organization serves as that vehicle that will take us from one generation to the next. Whether it's organization in terms of the family, the local community, the tribe, these are all levels of organization up to the level of the nation. Our task now is to free our nation so we can live in the way that we want to live as a people and pass that on to our people. So I'd just like to ask both organizations if they could just share with you what the vision is of their women's union for the women, and for the nation. What is your vision? What do you want to change?
I guess the vision has been the same, but the way it was, I guess it came in practice was different. As I said, it was founded during the Eritreans' struggle for independence in 1979. So that looked very different. They were, it was through the huge and large participation in the armed struggle that they were able to found this union. So initially, it was to purchase independence under the EPLF. Now that we've achieved independence, it looks different. It looks making sure that girls have education. As I described earlier, since 1990 to 2018, we show that the literacy skills have been more than double, from 49% to I believe 97%. So it looks different now, but the vision's always been the same. It's to involve women in politics, economics, as well as any conversation that's nation building. So essentially to have them in decision making and leadership roles. So I would say that's the vision, to make sure that women have equal seats to men. This is also shown in the National Assembly. So 30% of the seats are reserved for women, and then 70%, the remaining 70%, women can compete against their men counterparts. So yes, it's been different in how it's done, but I believe the vision has always been the same, to protect girls' rights and in terms of education, in terms of the activation of politics, social life, from very traditional and life that was heavily oppressed by, I guess, patriarchy, to now being able to, I guess, reach capacities where they're actually able to gain education and see how that looks in social life and contribute to the national development of our tribe.
Even as our vision is not that different from all Africans, like unions, women's visions. So we are, the women's celebrations means access to educations. So, and healthcare, decent work, equality, equal pay, political representative and economic independency and freedom from the violence. And currently, because Sudan, so we are facing like the war. So we are working like very hard as a student, as a women's unions in supporting our women back home to stop the war and to protect the civilians. Like, for example, it's like yesterday we, our sisters, we and in the women's unions, we submitted like a petition to the human nations that we are asking for like stop immediate war in Sudan and protecting the women and the girls against the violence that they are facing, and also to put accountability on the perpetrators that they are causing those problems. And like we are calling for like civilians roles back to Sudan. So this is the main issues now for people that are facing the war now. Just peace for Sudan.
Thank you very, very much, sister. So, you know, we've got East Africa, North Africa, we've got a more global organization from the, you know, the AAP, PRP, but our vision for African women is the same. And I think our vision for the African people is the same. So just to close this section, I'd like to thank our speakers from this morning, to thank Comrade Rasha, and Comrade Sinit, okay, and the comrade who, Najla, to thank all the speakers in this first part of the session. I'm not sure how we're going to do it. I think we're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we'd ask you to come back, and we're going to join our international webinar. We also have cultural artists that will perform later today, and we'll have some lovely food prepared by our comrades from Guinea-Bissau. So thank you very much, and we'll see you back here in 5 to 10 minutes. All right, thank you.
Switch it off.
Tá bem, obrigada.
Yeah, we're still learning a bit on the fly, but I mean, I think what we'll do in the second half, in terms of.
Yeah, just what we've done. Okay.
I think I was thinking I should have kept this mic on that, so.
All right.
So that you don't have to hand it back.
Yeah.
I was gonna set up one mic on one side and have this one here, so you don't have just a bit of a difference. You know, feel like that and like that.
Yeah.
You
I didn't even know what we were going to do with this. Yeah. Because we run out of time.
Thank you very much for being so reactive on the fly as well.
Yeah, been 100 years.
Should we turn off this one? Yes.
Muito boa tarde a todos. Não estou ouvindo nada. Alô?
Sim, pausaram por uns 10 minutos.
Ok.